The Hanging Gardens of Babylon represent the most enduring mystery of the ancient world's canonical wonders. Unlike the Great Pyramid of Giza or the Lighthouse of Alexandria, no physical trace of this verdant paradise has ever been definitively identified. This lack of physical evidence has led many historians to question whether the gardens were a tangible feat of engineering or a poetic invention of the Hellenistic imagination. Because the original list of wonders was Greek in origin, it focused on monuments that captured the Hellenic sense of grandeur and curiosity. To the Greeks, Babylon was a distant and exotic capital, located far to the east in the fertile plains of Mesopotamia. Their knowledge of the region was often filtered through second-hand accounts and romanticized tales told by travelers and soldiers. While other ancient wonders are documented by contemporary sources and archaeological remains, the evidence for the Hanging Gardens is notably scarce. No Babylonian records from the time of the city's greatest heights mention such a spectacular structure. This absence is particularly striking because we possess an exhaustive list of construction projects commissioned by King Nebuchadnezzar II. While he meticulously documented the building of temples, walls, and gates, the gardens are conspicuously missing from his royal annals. Modern archaeology has also struggled to find a suitable location for the gardens within the ruins of the ancient city. Excavations have revealed incredible structures like the Ishtar Gate, but the specific tiered gardens described by later writers remain hidden. However, the lack of discovery does not necessarily prove that the gardens never existed. Ancient civilizations are not perfectly preserved, and much of the architectural record has been lost to time, erosion, and the changing course of the Euphrates River. To understand the origins of this legend, we must look back at the emergence of Babylon as a center of power in Mesopotamia. The city first appears in historical records during the 3rd millennium BC as part of the Akkadian Empire. Mesopotamia was one of the earliest cradles of urban civilization, defined by the rise and fall of great states like Sumer and Akkad. The Akkadian Empire is often considered the world's first true empire, uniting diverse cultures under a single administration. During this early period, Babylon was a relatively secondary town compared to the great Sumerian centers to the south. It functioned perhaps as a religious or cultural site, but had not yet attained its status as a world capital. The fortunes of the city changed dramatically in the 17th century BC during the era of the Old Babylonian Empire. It was during this time that the city became the seat of power for one of history's most famous legislators. King Hammurabi, the 6th ruler of this empire, is best known for the Code of Hammurabi, which established a standardized system of justice. This legal text detailed specific crimes and the punishments that would follow, moving society toward a unified rule of law. While the punishments described in the code often seem harsh to modern eyes, they represented a significant advancement in legal theory. By codifying laws, Hammurabi limited the arbitrary nature of personal vengeance and introduced the concept of proportionality. The code also established the early roots of the presumption of innocence, a principle that remains a cornerstone of modern justice systems. It required that accusations be proven and that both parties follow a structured process before the law. This era of Babylonian history was a beacon of civilization, rivaled only by the sophistication of the Nile Valley in Egypt. The society featured a complex administration, specialized labor, and an agricultural system capable of sustaining large urban populations. Centuries later, the Greeks and Romans would look back at these Mesopotamian cultures with a sense of profound awe. They recognized that Babylon belonged to an ancient world that was significantly older and more established than their own civilizations. After the fall of the Old Babylonian Empire, the the city entered a long period of foreign rule and relative decline. It was conquered by various groups, including the Assyrians, who destroyed and later rebuilt the city during their northern dominance. Despite these setbacks, Babylon remained a vital religious and economic center throughout the first millennium BC. It was a city that refused to fade, waiting for its next moment of imperial glory to arrive. That moment came in the 7th century BC with the rise of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. This new state expanded rapidly, eventually controlling vast territories across the Levant, Arabia, and southern Anatolia. Under the Neo-Babylonian kings, the city underwent a resurgence that made it perhaps the largest and wealthiest metropolis on Earth. Historians estimate that its population may have reached as many as 200,000 residents during its peak. Maintaining such a population required immense logistical coordination and a massive surplus of food and resources. This scale of urbanization would not be seen again until the height of the Roman Empire or the great cities of ancient China. It is this version of Babylon that is most frequently depicted in historical and religious traditions. It was a city of gold, massive brick walls, and towering ziggurats that reached toward the heavens. The Jewish and Christian traditions portray this period of Babylon in a complex and often unfavorable light. In these accounts, Babylon is an invading power that captured Jerusalem and deported a significant portion of its population. This era of the Babylonian exile had a profound impact on the development of Jewish identity and religious thought. While many exiles eventually returned home, others remained in Mesopotamia, forming a diaspora that would persist for millennia. The biblical associations with Babylon also include the famous Tower of Babel, often linked to the city's massive temples. These stories contributed to Babylon's reputation in the West as a symbol of both human achievement and divine judgment. The Hanging Gardens would have been built during this Neo-Babylonian period of renewed wealth and architectural ambition. Later Greek and Roman writers described them as a stunning feat of hydraulic engineering and botanical beauty. These authors described a series of ascending tiered terraces that supported a vast variety of trees, shrubs, and flowering plants. The structure was said to resemble a lush, artificial mountain rising out of the flat Mesopotamian plain. The term hanging is actually a translation of the Greek word kastos, which refers to overhanging structures like terraces. This suggests the plants were not literally suspended by ropes, but were planted on raised platforms that overhung the levels below. One of the most fascinating aspects of these descriptions is the complex irrigation system required to keep the gardens alive. In the arid climate of Iraq, water would have needed to be lifted from the Euphrates River to reach the upper terraces. Some accounts mention the use of an Archimedes screw, a mechanical device used to pump water. While Archimedes is credited with its formal description later, similar hydraulic principles were already in use across the ancient Near East. The construction of such a garden is often attributed by legend to King Nebuchadnezzar II. The story goes that he built the gardens for his wife, Queen Amytis, who missed the green hills of her homeland in Media. Media was a mountainous and forested region, and the flat landscape of Babylon reportedly left the queen feeling homesick. The gardens were intended to be a grand gesture of love, recreating the atmosphere of her native land. Another legend attributes the gardens to a mythical queen named Semiramis. While her character is largely legendary, she may have been inspired by real Assyrian regents who wielded significant power in the centuries prior. Regardless of who built them, the mystery of their location remains the primary focus of modern scholarship. Some researchers suggest that the gardens may have been located in the city of Nineveh rather than Babylon. Nineveh was the capital of the Assyrian Empire and was known for its own elaborate garden systems built by King Sennacherib. These gardens were well documented and featured an extensive network of aqueducts and canals to bring water from the mountains. It is possible that ancient travelers and historians confused the two great Mesopotamian capitals over the passing centuries. The reputation of Sennacherib's gardens may have been transferred to Babylon in the retelling of the story. Alternatively, the gardens of Babylon may have been distributed throughout the city rather than being a single, isolated monument. Many palaces and upper-class homes likely featured terrace gardens that collectively impressed foreign visitors. The decline of Babylon began after the Persian invasion in the 6th century BC. While it remained a provincial capital under Persian and later Greek rule, it never regained its status as the center of an independent empire. By the time of the Islamic period in the Middle Ages, the city's population had dwindled significantly. New urban centers like Baghdad began to rise, while the ancient ruins of Babylon were slowly reclaimed by the desert. For centuries, the site was abandoned and buried under layers of sand and silt. The last mentions of Babylon in the 11th century describe it as a small, quiet village sitting amidst the silent ruins of a former world empire. Today, the mystery of the Hanging Gardens continues to capture the imagination of archaeologists and dreamers alike. Whether they were a real architectural marvel or a legendary symbol of beauty, they represent the peak of ancient human ambition. Discover more history by watching the next video. We're eager to share more with you. You can't go wrong. All our videos are deeply detailed, dull while fascinating, and distinctly sleep-inducing.